now, 580 Sports Talk coming your way on a Wednesday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you for the next 3 hours, talking all things Major League Baseball, Kansas City Royals, Kansas City Chiefs, what is wrong with you semifinals, Kansas State Wildcats, and so much more. Thank you for stopping by and being a part of the show on this Wednesday, March 29th. And as I just mentioned, we've got a ton to get to coming up on today's show. We appreciate you listening or watching along on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. Head over there. You can watch the live stream. We would love for you to jump into the comment section on YouTube as well with your thoughts on anything we're talking about on the show today. You can also text in your thoughts on our text line, 785-272-9429. Dan, getting into the opening day spirit, rocking the Kyle Freeland jersey today.
That's right. The race for 63 or more wins starts today. Well, tomorrow.
Do you have interest on that number?
No, actually, the Vegas total for the Rockies is 64.5. The interest in 63 is that would cap the total number of possible losses at 99. The Rockies have never lost 100 games. I'd like to keep it that way.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That they've never lost
100
100
They've never lost 100 games. Not for lack of effort.
I was going to say, I'm a little surprised.
Not for lack of effort, and this could very well be the year, but no, pulling for that 63rd win to come at some point in September or earlier. Earlier would be wonderful.
Yeah, earlier would be phenomenal.
Hope springs eternal, right? Everybody's 0-0 today.
And we are going to talk all things Major League Baseball over the course of the show today. Every hour, we're going to hit Major League Baseball hard. We've got our Royals season predictions coming up here in just a moment. Final record, individual thoughts, who's going to lead the team in certain categories, some statistical landmarks for individuals we'll get to. What are we most excited for? All that's coming up here in just a moment. Also, we'll talk some Chiefs later this hour. I've got a question about pass catchers for the Chiefs and which ones you might be interested in position by position. I'll explain what I mean coming up a little bit later on in the hour. Also, speaking of Major League Baseball, we will get to our season preview kind of from a narrative storyline perspective coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We've got new rules this year for Major League Baseball. Bases are bigger. You can't pick off the same way. You've got a pitch clock now. We've still got fake ghost runners on second base to start extra innings. What is that going to do for the game? Is it going to pay immediate dividends in terms of engagement and interaction with the sport? What do we feel about them? What are the biggest on-field stories? Things like that. We'll get to all that coming up at the top of the 4 o'clock hour today. We will also get to our actual predictions. Who's going to win the divisions? Who's going to be the 3 wild cards in each league as well? Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, MVP, and who is going to end up winning the World Series. We will make all of our predictions coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Tim Fitzgerald is going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up. A lot to talk about with Fitz. K-State season, obviously, in the books on the basketball side. Ish Massoud, as we found out earlier this afternoon, leaving the program. He's graduating and going to enter the transfer portal. We will also get to One Gotta Go. That'll be up later this hour. And let's not forget, we've got the monthly semifinals for What Is Wrong With You. The March semis coming up 4:20 today. 5 stories this month, so we'll do a play-in game, 2 semifinals to try to find our 2 finalists for Friday's monthly championship in What Is Wrong With You. Again, we'd love your thoughts on anything we're talking about today on the text line 785-272-9429, or you can hop in to the comment section on YouTube. Our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. We've already got a comment in from our man Vance, who says, are the Royals mathematically eliminated from the playoffs yet?
Rude.
No.
This is a day for optimism, Vance. This is a day where everyone is 0-0. This is a day for optimism that over the course of this first segment, we're probably going to douse little by little.
But we can enter the segment with optimism.
Yeah, that's the spirit.
All right, let's just jump right in then with the Kansas City Royals. Before we get to actual predictions for leaders, record, things like that, in the spirit of optimism, what is the one thing about this team, whether it's a player, a group, just the general fact that there's newness within the organization, what excites you the most about this year's club?
I think it is a combination of 2 of those things. Number one, it is a fresh start, a fresh coat of paint in that dugout, so to speak, with Matt Quatrero running the show, with a new pitching staff or new pitching coaching staff. It feels a little fresher, and it feels like a little bit more is possible. I think you kind of felt like with Mike Matheny and Cal Eldred, you'd already sort of bumped your head on what was possible for the Kansas City Royals with those guys in the dugout. With new leadership, a first-time manager, fresh perspectives, fresh ideas. I think that this, more so than when the baton was passed from Ned Yost to Mike Matheny, feels like a new era of Royals baseball. And that can be a scary thing, but I think for the Royals case, after what has transpired on the field the last 5 years, it was very much a necessary thing. So there is, I think, legitimate interest and excitement over what this new era is going to look like. How are the Royals going to play? How are they going to pitch? How are they going to develop and grow as a season goes on? I think that is a legitimately interesting thing to track in a way that it probably wasn't the last 5 years, because they kind of were what they were and very much stuck in an old school mindset that I don't think was beneficial to the young players that the Royals were trying to bring up. The second thing that I think is fair to be excited about is the top 4 guys in that batting order: Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez. You can line up that 4 against any other top 4 in the American League, just about, and feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty excited about it. There's dynamic offensive ability with those guys. Vinny Pasquantino, can he walk more than he strikes out for a full season? Can he pull the Tony Gwynn or the Joe DiMaggio and have more walks than strikeouts? Bobby Witt Jr. went 20-30 last year. Can he go 30-30 this year? What about 30-40? What about 30-50 with it being easier to steal bases this year? MJ Melendez, can he cut the strikeouts? Can he get that power number, get to his power more often and drive that home run total into the mid-20s? He certainly has the pop for it. And then the old standby, good old Salvador Perez. You know what he's going to give you: an average in the 270s-ish, an on-base percentage not a whole lot higher than that, and a whole bunch of big old dingers onto that patio down the left field line at Kauffman Stadium. I like those guys quite a bit, and I think those 4 at the top of the Royals order, those are going to be worth the price of admission.
I think for me, it's just the fact that we are, in all likelihood, going to see a different approach to how the game of baseball is played going forward for this Royals team. Because realistically, how long was it the exact same? Like, bunch of dudes who really don't have a whole lot of power, except for Salvi. We want to do the get on base and steal bases. And by the way, no one can really get on base because we don't really work on that. That's not really a thing we do. And we have a bunch of low on base percentage guys. And we have a very old school style of manager and a very old school style of GM. Also, we have terrible pitching. And it's kind of, obviously 14 and 15 were great. 16, you were competitive. 17, you at least were in the hunt for a wild card. Otherwise, it's been, 16 years of pretty much the same kind of baseball and mostly the same kind of results. I'm just excited to see a different approach. And I don't think it's necessarily something we'll see game 1, although maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe Matt Quatrero is going to try some really wild, at least by Royal standard stuff, day 1 tomorrow. That's certainly possible. But I think it's just exciting to see how are they going to approach managing the pitching staff? How are they going to approach managing in-game substitutions, batting orders, lineup, whatever? I'm just excited to see what that is going to look like, because I think I was just bored of what we already, the team stunk, which also factored into the boredom of how the team did things. But, maybe there's a new approach that actually works. These young guys are going to get a whole year of working with Alex Zumwalt, who they found a lot of success with at the minor league level. We've got a new pitching coach now for the Royals. It's not Cal Eldred, and that's really all that matters. And again, Quatrero comes from an organization that has had a lot of success in recent years, playing baseball and just running the organization a much different way than what the Royals have done. So I think it's just the fact that it's something different. There is an injection of, hey, this is truly new, because it's always, hope springs eternal and everybody gets excited. This is optimism season for baseball. But realistically, going into last year, what did we it's optimism because, hey, maybe things will turn around. I was optimistic by saying 76 wins, I think was my prediction last year. But it was still Mike Matheny. It was still Dayton Moore. In fact, he got a promotion technically last year. It was still a lot of the same pieces. We didn't know when Vinny was going to come up, or Prado, or what it would look like for Melendez. Witt was exciting, Bobby Witt, but he was a rookie, and it's hard to put a lot of pressure on a rookie. This year, though, even if the team's probably not projecting to be very good, there is hey, I'm curious to see what this looks like. Because as much as you want instant gratification, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And if we can get to August, September and say, this team didn't win a lot of games because there's not enough talent, there's not enough depth, the pitching is still just not talented enough, but the actual people in charge of setting things up and putting players in a position to win actually did a better job of that, and we have this evidence, anecdotal or otherwise, that proves that, I think that's a major win this season for the Royals.
And part of the beauty of baseball is that this isn't like when we talk about like an organizational philosophy shift or things being different. This isn't like a football team hiring a new coach and saying, hey, we're going to run out of the shotgun now instead of being in the I formation. And so you can like see it right away from like day one, you see visibly what is different.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball doesn't quite work that way. There's but so much you can do like schematically, but you can also over the course of a couple of weeks or a month or a half a season or a full season, you start to notice things that are trends. You start to notice perhaps, hey, Bobby Witt Jr. is chasing out of the zone a lot less. And he is walking a little bit more and striking out a little bit less as a result. Or, hey, this relief pitcher or this starting pitcher, they're not throwing this pitch as much anymore. They're really leaning on this other pitch, or they've added this new pitch. Like when Brady Singer really refined his changeup, and that allowed him to go to another level as a starting pitcher last year. Those little tweaks, the Royals are now, by being more data-driven, more apt to include those and have those be a part of a player's development throughout the season. And those will be the little things that I think you notice over the course of the 162 game grind that hopefully pay dividends.
On the downside, the less optimistic, the pessimistic, maybe we can even go as far as to say pessimistic side. What worries you the most?
That the pitching staff was the worst in baseball last year, and there's only but so much better you can expect it to get. I think that would be the first thing. Again, I am of the mind that firing Cal Eldred and moving on to a different regime is a big deal, and that you will see some strides forward be made by some guys this year. So maybe some careers salvaged, but there's but so much better that pitching staff is going to get, but so much better it can be reasonably, realistically expected to get. And for this team to actually contend, I think it would have to get better to a level that I'm not entirely sure they're capable of.
No, I don't think they're capable of it at all. And honestly, you look at the guys they've added and what they want this rotation to look like, at least what opening day the rotation is going to look like. It sort of feels like the intent is not to contend with this pitching staff. And I know that realistically, the Royals are not going to be a quote-unquote contender, but it feels like this staff is just a group that they just want to get by with. Like, can we stay afloat? Can we keep some element of our head above water? You added Jordan Lyles to this team, who's coming off of a good year by his standards, but he's been one of the worst every 5-day starters in all of baseball.
You got him for innings in bulk. Kirkland brand innings. Like, don't expect a whole lot more than that. And hey, that would be an improvement over what has been for the Royals the last couple of years in their starting rotation. But yeah, there's but so much you can expect, I think, particularly from the starting five, and then a bullpen that walked the most guys in a single season, I think, in the history of the Royals, and the most relief walks in the season than ever before last year. Like, again, you're looking for improvement, obviously, but realistically, can that be enough improvement to get this team where it needs to be, or where you'd like it to be as far as contending in the American League Central? Not necessarily. And so that is my concern, that, maybe it doesn't click. Maybe it doesn't work for these young pitchers. Maybe this class of 2018, unfortunately, is I don't want to say a lost cause. That's too dramatic, but too far down the developmental path with poor development to salvage their careers into being the above average contributors that you hoped that they would be in the starting rotation.
Let's get to the big question here first before we get to some individual thoughts. What is the Royals' final record? Their Vegas win-loss total, at least the most updated one I have seen, has them, and I just lost them on the list here, 68.5. I think I've seen them at 69.5 in some places.
They won 65 games last year.
Not 100 losses.
No, did not lose 100 games. I don't think they'll lose 100 games again this year either. I think something in the neighborhood, like I think if they could win in the high 70s, that would be something that could be lauded. I think that would be a really good step forward for a young club. But I don't think they're going to quite get there, even though the Central, I don't think, is particularly good. I mean, the American League Central last year only had one team with a winning record. The White Sox were in second place at an even 500. We have a YouTube comment, Christopher, asking if the winner of the AL Central will have a winning percentage that begins with a 0.5 this year. If they could even have one team over 500. Now, I think Cleveland's good.
I think so, too.
I think Cleveland will win 90 games again. But some of that is the competition is just not real great. Like, I don't think Detroit's going to be very good. I think Minnesota will be better. And yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's going to come together for Chicago. I mean, I wish all the best for Pedro Grifol, but that feels like a really flawed baseball team. So it's not the sternest competition. There are games to be won in the American League Central. Somebody's got to win them. Why not the Royals? But we just talked about the reasons why not the Royals. I just don't think they're going to pitch well enough to really move into that level where they are contending for one of those final wild card berths. 72, 73 wins feels about right for me. Low 70s. I think they can make that kind of improvement.
I'll say they get to 70. I'll say 70 and 92. I don't think this team is going to be good. I think there are going to be moments probably late in the year, ironically, kind of reminiscent of the latter Dayton Moore years where they play a little bit better at the end of the year. Not this past year, but you say, okay, well, I see it. Like I see what they want to do here. I do think we'll see a little bit of that this year. Less so because they just got lucky and got on a run, and more so because it's going to take some time to fully adapt in season to a new regime. But I think they can get to 70.
And I mean, the other thing you have to factor in, the other thing that could be something that factors is if midway through the season they make some moves. If there are some trades they make at the deadline. Last year they shipped Whit Merrifield out. They traded Andrew Benintendi. Did they do that again this year? Are there some pieces that could play their way into being trade bait? Could Zach Greinke help a contender's rotation and be moved at the trade deadline? Could Aroldis Chapman, if he has a bounce back year, help a contender's bullpen? I bet there'd be a contender or two willing to make an offer to add a guy like that. But if he's pitching to that level, that would obviously weaken the Royals bullpen for the second half of the season. So that's always the kind of thing that bears watching when you're a team that you know isn't really in a position to be fighting for a playoff berth when August and September rolls along. So yeah, that's me. I'll say 72. I'll go 72 and 90.
I'd be okay with it. I mean, can you be interesting until training camp? Like, just I don't even need competitive. I just need interesting. Like, have something on, maybe a big scandal or something that takes some time for.
Well, we got that last year, but that wasn't a fun one to talk about.
No, that was not fun one bit to talk about. But did make the all right. Well, it's time to trade Whit discussions a lot easier.
Yes, it did. It did grease those skids.
Yeah, facilitated that a little bit. By the way, the Bard also on YouTube saying with his latest tremendous work, Junior, Melendez, and Vinny, Salvi will drive in quite many. Although the last third is a fat, stinking turd, the top four will score runs aplenty.
Wow.
Unlike our pal Fulton, the Bard, not a big Kyle Isbell guy, apparently.
Not buying Michael Massey stock, huh?
Or Nicky Lopez. I was on with Jake and Fulton yesterday on Mic'd Up for Crosstalk, and we were debating which season was faker, the one good year for Hunter Dozier or the one good year for Nicky Lopez. The answer is Nicky Lopez. He has 4 full major league seasons. An OPS plus over 100 one time. The other 3 below 60.
Well, with guys who don't hit for any power or walk, you have to hit 300 to be a good offensive player, like a positive offensive contributor. And if you're going to hit 300 with no power, you have to have a lot of luck with balls in play. And that happened for Nicky Lopez in 2021. And that has not happened in the other 3 seasons he's been a major leaguer.
All right, let's get to some individual thoughts here first. Number 1, Zach Greinke. He has, and I got to make sure I can do the math here, 2,882 career strikeouts. Another palindrome. Hey, what a great way to end palindrome week. He is 118 strikeouts away from 3,000. Does he get there this year?
Struck out 73.
Yeah, in a full season.
In 137 innings last year. And I think that's probably around the number of innings we can expect him to pitch this season. Can he tick the strikeout rate back up around 6 per 9? If he can, he's got a shot, but I just don't think he's that kind of pitcher anymore. I think that if he wants to get to 3,000, he may have to pitch another season after this. At the same time, I think if there's a pitcher who might be aware of that and might try and pitch to the strikeout a little bit as the season comes down the stretch, it could be him.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say under 118 strikeouts for Zach Greinke, but that's not a prediction I make with any joy.
He did have 120 in 2021. However, he also threw 34 more innings than he threw last year. So we'll see. I hope he gets there, but I'm not going to expect it. I think he'll be certainly closer to 73 than to 118 again next year. If we assume there is one Royals All-Star this year, who is it?
And the easy answer is Salvador Perez, because there just aren't a lot of great catchers. And Salvador Perez is a great catcher.
Yeah.
So that he is the easy answer. He could be the default Royals All-Star for this year and probably for a couple of years to come. But I said yesterday, I think there's a breakout for one of the younger guys that could get them to All-Star level. So if it is not Salvador Perez, I think it'll be Vinny Pasquantino.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. Give me Scott Barlow. I think new pitching, he was already good with the crappy pitching staff. With a new one, maybe he can be even better. I'll say Scott Barlow is the...
They run up a decent save total.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, who is it usually when you're talking about teams that get like one All-Star? How many times is it the guy racking up the saves?
Often.
Yes.
Quite often.
How often has it been that for the Royals? I can think of, oh my God, what was his name? Mike McDougal.
Yeah.
Mike McDougal was an All-Star, I'm pretty certain.
All right, let's get to some rapid-fire Royals leaders predictions for the year. We'll start with batting average.
Who leads the Royals in batting average? Do they have to be like batting title eligible to be the correct answer to this?
Yeah, like among everyday players.
Okay. Vinny Pasquantino.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Vinny too.
Yeah.
Although I would not be shocked if it's MJ Melendez. I think he's got that in him. I think he's got a good enough approach at the plate. I think it could be Melendez, but I think Pasquantino's the safer bet. Home runs.
Home run leader will be Salvador Perez with 33.
33? Wow. That's more than Vinny?
Yeah. Vinny, I think, hit 24.
I'll pick Vinny. I'll pick Pasquantino.
Okay.
Wins on the mound.
Wins, I will say it will be Brady Singer. I think he'll win a dozen.
Yeah, Singer's the good pick there. I think he's probably got more in the tank left than Greinke. I think it's more likely we see a gem out of Brady Singer than it is we see a gem out of Zach Greinke at this stage of their two respective careers. Greinke also got no run support at all last season. What was he, 4 and 9?
And he just doesn't go deep into games like he used to, where Singer, I think, is more apt to get into the 6th, 7th inning and be less reliant on the bullpen.
Yeah, I think Singer's the pick there, too. And then innings pitched.
I'm going to go with Jordan Lyles here.
I mean, how do you not? He's the easy pick there, I think. How many did he throw last year?
He was up around 180, I think.
I think you're right about that. I mean, he's thrown as many innings as almost anyone else in baseball in recent years.
Yeah, 182 years ago, 179 last year. So that's dead on consistency right there, man. He takes the ball every 5 days. I think he can give him 170, 180 innings, and I think that will be better than I think Singer will be close. I think Brad Keller gets close too.
Okay.
Feeling a bounce back year for Brad Keller. I think he'll be up around that 160, 170 innings as well.
All right, finally, one bold prediction for the year.
Bold prediction?
Yeah.
Maybe that's it for me. Brad Keller, bounce back season, and wins double-digit games for the Royals.
One bold prediction. The Royals add a major league position player at the trade deadline.
For what purpose?
For future purposes. For not the sake of contending this year, but because they're going to end up trading a Chapman or a Barlow or a Stallmont or someone at the deadline.
And they get somebody who's like, that kind of has been their MO, right?
Yeah.
When they've traded guys, they're not looking for, single A lottery tickets.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for triple A guys that they can then, guys who are close to big league ready, maybe saying maybe foregoing ceiling a little bit for the sake of major league readiness.
Yeah, and maybe they approach it a little bit differently now with JJ Picollo really at the helm of all personnel decisions, but I think they will add someone for one of those positions that I think long-term they've got some questions about. I mean, center field doesn't really count because I think they would like Drew Waters to be that piece, but making sure they know what their left field is going to look like, making sure they know what third base is going to look like in the future, because I think that's a tenuous spot in terms of looking ahead. Thankfully, Hunter Dozier will not be in the lineup forever, so you've got to plan a little bit for the future there. So, yeah, I think they had a major league position player at the trade deadline. And I think it's one of those pitchers I mentioned who gets shipped out for him. Or I guess it should be the other way around. The other team would ship out a position player in order to get a Barlow or a Chapman or whoever.
Christopher asks on the YouTube comments, will any starter not named Brady Singer throw a pitch after the 7th inning this year?
No. I'm going to go with no.
I'm going to go with yes. I think Lyles takes a couple of starts, maybe into the 8th. Not necessarily good starts, but
man, it's getaway day. We burned through the bullpen yesterday. Already down 8-2. And Jordan, just stay out there.
We'd love to hear your predictions, record predictions, bold predictions for the Royals. We'd love to get them in on the YouTube comments or, of course, on the text line 785-272-9429. Hit us up.
All right, with that, let's take a time out. We've got more baseball coming up throughout the show today. But first things first, we'll get to a break, and we'll play One Gotta Go after this on 580 Sports Talk.
players, like Acuna is great, and I think he will bounce back, and I think he will put up MVP caliber number. He's only 25.
Yeah.
But Juan Soto is Ted Williams, and Julio Rodriguez might be Willie Mays. And Shohei Ohtani is Shohei Ohtani because they only made one of those.
Yeah.
So,
you can't touch that one.
Yeah. So, what I'm saying, baseball's in good hands, and you should watch these guys play if you can.
Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we'll move from baseball to a little NFL football. The Kansas City Chiefs. I've got a question about adding a position or adding a pass catcher, but does it matter what position they actually play? I'll describe what I mean next on 580 Sports Talk. Really quick, before we get to my thought on the Kansas City Chiefs, did you see the quotes? Andy Rogers from MLB.com posted this. The quotes from Matt Quattrero about telling guys they made the roster.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is awesome. So it's his first managerial job in the major league level. And he got to talk about what it was like telling guys that they made the roster. And he says this, I'll read it to you real quick. I kind of approached it as, regardless of whether it's their first or their 20th, it's something to really cherish because you shouldn't take it for granted. A couple of them, we were going over to the Padres. We were going over to play the Padres. I called a couple of those guys like Massey and Vinny in. And I said, hey, you probably don't have much doubt, but I wanted to congratulate you. You're making the roster. Vinny said, man, you scared the crap out of me calling me in here. I said, you think I was going to release you? Send you down 30 seconds before the game starts? And later we got out to the dugout and Massey said, I don't know where you got that there was never any doubt in my mind. Some of the ones I wasn't expecting too. Matt Duffy was really happy. Franmil Reyes gave me a hug, which, as you can imagine, pretty impressive. The veteran guys, that shows what kind of people they are, that they're not taking it for granted. Even Zach gave me a smile and a handshake when I told him he was going to be the opening day starter. Zach Greinke showing like real human emotion and interaction. How about that? Guys must like Quattrero.
I love that line from Michael Massey.
What do you mean?
What do you mean I wasn't doubting it? I mean, until you've made your first one, and this is Michael Massey's first opening day, like, I'm sure there was doubt.
Yeah.
You're hoping, you feel good about it, but you never really know.
Right.
So, it's pretty cool. And just a bit of a different side to hear of the new manager and how he relates to his players. I think Matt Quattrero is going to do a fine job in that Royals dugout.
Yeah, I hope he does. And it sounds like the guys respond to him well. And
I just think the energy is different. The energy is better. Just kind of felt like a sour clubhouse at times last year. And the whole, we'll call it the Toronto incident, did not help matters. And
no.
And
I mean, they had guys putting their names on quotes that were disparaging those players.
Yeah. So I just feel like now with a new manager and new coaches in the dugout, it feels like a fresh coat of polish and a fresh paint and an opportunity for a new start. And I think that's so much needed, especially for a team that is going to lean on a lot of guys who are still new in their major league careers.
All right, I did want to get to something on the Kansas City Chiefs here before we get to the end of the hour. We spent a lot of time yesterday talking about pass catchers and the wide receiver group. Why haven't the Chiefs done anything yet? Does Odell Beckham make sense, etc.? I think we are at a point, and maybe you disagree with me on this, I think the Chiefs are going to draft a pass catcher, and I'm using that phrase specifically, somewhere in the first half of the draft. So we're talking days 1, 2, maybe 4th round, but I'm thinking rounds 1, 2, 3. I think they're going to take a pass catcher at this point.
I do too.
Does it matter what position that player plays? Does it matter if that is a wide receiver or a tight end? And the person who stands out to me, and the reason why I'm kind of hinging it on pass catcher, I'm thinking of Dalton Kincaid, the tight end from Utah. We've brought up his name a handful of times. He's coming back from an injury, which you have to note, he's going to be an old rookie. He'll be 24 when the season starts. He's awesome. He is such a good player.
He is.
And was for years for that Utah program. I think he is a stud. And if I was going to take a tight end in the first 2 rounds, I would take Dalton Kincaid. The Chiefs are going to get one shot at him because more of the mock drafts I've seen have him going kind of early to mid second round right now, which means he could get up to early first. But the Chiefs had the last pick in the first round. So at most, they're going to get one shot at getting him. He's not going to last till pick 63 in all likelihood. Maybe something happens. In all likelihood, he's not going to last there. He's not really a classic inline tight end. He's more of a receiving tight end. So you think, like, Kelsey doesn't fit either because he can do everything. He can be slot, inline, backfield, out wide, doesn't matter. But think more like not that he's the same player as Jimmy Graham, but that kind of tight end. Like, not going to be in line very often. Would you be content drafting that guy if it means you get that talent, but your wide receiver room is going to look somewhat janky? Or would you rather make sure you get a true wide receiver to shore up that room for the short and long term?
Dalton Kincaid to the Chiefs would almost be unfair to a certain extent to have him and Travis Kelce. And you can run what you would call 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. Like, come on, man. That would put a twinkle in Andy Reid's eye. I can almost guarantee you. That being said, though, it is enticing to think about multiple tight end looks being lethal over the middle of the field. And we've seen it work. We've seen the Patriots build a potent passing game with the focal points being not 1, but 2 tight ends. You had the all-timer, Rob Gronkowski, and then you had the other guy we don't talk about. But
see, his brother was in the news this week.
Threw a rock at ESPN headquarters. That was wild.
A brick.
Oh, a brick.
A brick.
That's even more wild. I could find a rock. You got to go out of your way to get a brick. Anyhow, but like the Patriots, those 2 guys were the focal point of that passing game. And you had obviously Tom Brady throwing them the ball, and it was very, very hard to stop. So I do think that you could build more than just a functional passing game. You could have a dynamic and dominant passing game if Patrick Mahomes is throwing to a tight end, the caliber of Travis Kelce, and a second tight end who can make plays down the field the way that Dalton Kincaid can. And let's be honest. I mean, Travis Kelce is not going to be able to do this forever. It feels like he can, but he's entering his mid-30s. And eventually you're going to have to think about who's next, who comes after that. And Dalton Kincaid being 24, that's not ancient by any means, but he's older than most guys who come into the league, which suggests that physically he ought to be maybe more equipped to step in and be productive right away. But you could do it. Like the Chiefs could absolutely do it if they felt like that was what they wanted to do. But at the same time, you're still going to need somebody to line up on the outside and win a one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
You're still going to need somebody who can go get like a back shoulder throw on the sideline, or somebody who can get underneath. Like we talked about yesterday when we were talking about Odell Beckham Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chiefs losing Juju Smith-Schuster means they lost the wide receiver who would do the dirty work.
Yeah.
And I still think you need that guy. And I don't know who that guy necessarily is in the draft. Like, you're talking about big physical wide receivers. I like A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest a lot, as somebody who he's built like George Pickens.
Yeah.
And has a lot of similar like physical traits to a George Pickens. And I think that would be somebody that would be pretty enticing for the Chiefs on day 2 if they wanted to go the wide receiver route. But I also think that if it's pick 27 and Dalton Kincaid is still on the board and you hear the little like, oh, there's been a trade. I think if it were the Chiefs and it was Kincaid at 27 or 28, that's who they're moving up to get. It'd be pretty exciting.
I love big slot receivers, like dudes who are, and we're not talking like, Welkers and Edelmans that time. I mean, like dudes who are 6'3" and play in the slot. Like Juju Smith-Schuster is probably a little bit smaller than I'm talking about, but he kind of fits that role. Dudes who are willing to mix it up a little bit. You can diversify your route tree so much because you've got more room to work on both sides. You are putting defensive backs in really difficult positions because your slot corners are generally smaller corners because they need to be a little bit shiftier because you think slot receiver, small, shifty guy. Big slots, then you end up putting the defense in a bind. Well, do you go with your smaller slot corner, your nickel guy, who generally is going to have a major size mismatch against you, disadvantage for them, advantage for you, or do you move your bigger boundary corner inside and then generate a better matchup for your outside receiver? I love putting big guys in the slot, and I kind of feel like Kincaid can be that guy. Again, Kelce can do everything. So he kind of works his way out of that role because you can put him in the slot, inline, outside. Doesn't really matter what you do with him. He's always going to generate the most attention. I think you can use a guy like Kincaid, not necessarily as a true tight end, but more of a dirty work, big wide receiver who can work the middle of the field. Now, the other thing that plays in here, do you trust that Kadarius Toney can be an outside boundary wide receiver? Can he play that role? And if the Chiefs really do believe he can, I think you can be a little bit more creative with what you do with your inside players. I think you can go and get a Dalton Kincaid and say, we want you to be more of a wide receiver in a tight end's body and be willing to block downfield. Nate Tice at The Athletic, they've got this awesome interactive big board they released today for the top 100 prospects. It's awesome. And Nate Tice's write-up about it says, Kincaid is not necessarily a good blocker, like you'd talk about like a great blocking tight end, but he's willing. I think as a wide receiver, that's almost more important. Like you've got to at least be willing to mix it up. If Kincaid's willing to do that, I think you can put that kind of talent on the field, run quote unquote 2 tight end sets, 12 personnel, 22 personnel, whatever, and still get a lot of the same benefits you would get from playing smaller receivers.
To the point about having a dominant passing game with 2 tight ends as the focal point, the 2011 Patriots, which was the best season in the career of the tight end who wasn't Rob Gronkowski on those teams. Gronk that year caught 90 passes on 124 targets, 1,300 yards. The guy we don't talk about caught 79 passes for 900 yards that year. Their leading receiver in yards and receptions was Wes Welker, slot guy.
Yeah.
And like a dominant slot guy. But slot guy, 122 catches on 173 targets. With the Chiefs' top returning targets maybe more equipped to be slot targets or smaller inside targets like Wes Welker was, maybe that's possible because Tom Brady that year threw for 5,000 yards. You know how many times in his career other than that Tom Brady threw for 5,000 yards? One time, and that was in a 17-game season in 2021.
Yeah, that was with the Bucs. Yeah, I think this is a situation where if you can get that talent, it is more important than pigeonholing positions. I think Kincaid is going to be a stud. We've got our guy Sam on the YouTube comments who says the same thing. Shout out to Sam. We've got to get to a break for the national and local news. We'll do our full Major League Baseball predictions, thoughts, and preview coming up as we start off the 4 o'clock hour on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started. I'm Brendan Dworzynski. That is Dan Lucero. We are here with you until 6 o'clock today. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We're still taking your thoughts on anything Royals, Major League Baseball, Chiefs receiving options, whatever you want to share. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429, or you can jump into the comment section on our YouTube live stream. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our YouTube channel. Go subscribe if you have not already. It's free, and it's the way to catch all of our live streams, post-game videos, and all of our other video content we're posting all the time.
General shenanigans.
Yeah, I would say specific shenanigans in some situations as well.
Yes.
It's all on YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Coming up here in this 4 o'clock hour of the Wednesday edition of the show, we'll get to our Major League Baseball season preview storylines, topics, general thoughts about the state of Major League Baseball and what's going on as we enter the year. We'll get to our picks for division winners, World Series winners, awards, all that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. Also this hour, we will talk to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up. And we will also get to our monthly semifinals in What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. That's coming up a little bit later on this hour, plus your texts and YouTube comments as well. We are less than 24 hours from the start of the Major League Baseball season. And the biggest story going into the year is, of course, the new rules. The biggest one is the pitch clock, because it has generated, I think, mostly positive reviews from spring training. But there's also the bigger bases. There are the new rules about the pitchers being able to throw over to first base a set number of times. The batters have to stay in the batter's box. There are a handful of new rules. We also know that the mystery runner on second base is staying. It sounds like that's going to be a permanent addition to Major League Baseball. Blech. Yeah, it sucks. I don't think I've ever heard you make that sound before.
Yeah.
It startled me.
Just
reflective. Taken aback.
Reflexive when I think about the fact that we essentially just give teams a free runner in the 10th inning. We stop playing real baseball, and we institute a rule that you have to institute when you're playing a level of baseball where there are no lights and there is a time limit because the next game has to start at 8. And also there is a limit on how long a game can realistically go because pitchers can't throw strikes because the participants are 9.
Yeah, and they have school in the morning.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you got to get home to make sure they get a good meal in and are awake for school at 7 the next day.
You
sure.
Can't give us one real extra inning. Like, you want to do it in the 12th so that, okay, fine. Can we get one extra? Like, I'm in the bargaining phase with this particular rule. Can we have one real extra inning?
No, I mean, that's kind of how hockey does it, right? In the regular season where you play overtime, if you don't score, you go to
3-on-3. It's 5 minutes of 3-on-3 overtime.
And then shootout.
And then they go to the shootout.
And then postseason, they play
sudden death, 5-on-5. Yeah,
yeah,
they play real. Yeah, they continue to play the sport as it's supposed to be played.
I guess
baseball does that too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's been the biggest thing with when you play regular season games under different rules than you play postseason games. Then you're telling me that it doesn't really matter who wins the regular season games as much as it does the postseason games. And you cheapen the regular season a little bit.
I agree with you,
and that leads to fewer people watching the regular season.
Do you think that these new rules, specifically the pitch clock, do you think they are going to have an immediate impact on how fans engage with the game, how interested in the game fans are? Do you think that's really going to make an immediate impact? Do you think by the end of the year, we'll be able to say, yes, this was a positive? Is it something that's not going to change anything?
Well, the early returns suggest that it's going to change quite a bit as far as the time of games. Spring training games were down almost half an hour in terms of time. But they weren't down in the sense of action. It wasn't that there were fewer balls in play. It wasn't that there were fewer runs scored. It was all the same baseball you were getting in 3 hours and 5 minutes, condensed into 2.5 hours, which I think we will all agree is a more reasonable unit of time to spend doing something if you can compress that action into a smaller amount. Like the concern I think you had, and I think it's fair to have this concern with the pitch clock, was that it would impact the game negatively, that there would be less action.
Yeah.
And as a result, you just get less baseball. And look, I was right there with some people on that. I entered spring training as a skeptic, even hearing from the minor leagues pretty much overwhelmingly rave reviews from the minor leagues that had used the pitch clock, that had been sort of the trial for this the last couple of years. And then spring training games were on, and I can tell you this. You ask about how it changes how we engage with the game. I like to watch baseball on television, and I am very used to looking up, seeing a pitch, and maybe I look down at my phone and read a handful of tweets. I look up and I see the next pitch, and I look back down at my phone and maybe play like an entire game of word cookies. And then I look up and I see another pitch, and then I look down at my phone and I read an entire article from The Athletic. And then I look up and it's the fourth pitch. You get the point, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a rhythm of the game that you've gotten used to where it does sort of allow you to do other things. I was watching a game on TV the other day. I looked down at my phone. I look up. There were 2 outs.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
What did I miss here?
What happened here? So it will change how we engage with the game, because we will be more engaged with the game, because if you're not, you will miss something. And that's how all good entertainment products are, right? Like, if you look down during a hockey game, you might miss a goal. If you look down during a basketball game, you might miss an alley-oop slam dunk. You can kind of look down with a football game, but like, we're used again to the rhythm of that, the timing of that. But with baseball, there was so much unnecessary down. The downtime was not adding to the game, and it wasn't making it so there was more action in the game. So you're trimming the fat in such a way that you're getting all the same baseball stuff, the same. Oh, it's a full count against a good hitter with a runner in scoring position. The same, the runner's taking their lead off of first. Maybe they're going to steal. The same, that's a 15 hopper that sneaks through the middle. It's a base hit. All the same amount of baseball stuff, just in a smaller amount of time. And that's why I've come all the way around on this. And I think most baseball people have come around on this. I don't know if you saw Jeff Passan's article today at ESPN.com. This is from the opening opening portion of his article about the pitch clock. People inside the game of baseball love the pitch clock so far. Like, love the pitch clock. Like, really love the pitch clock. Like, love the pitch clock as much as they love their own kids kind of love. Players love it. Coaches love it. Executives love it. Owners love it. And even those who don't love it, who think it needs to be a little longer, and umpires who have been told to enforce it strictly a little more lenient, respect it for what it's doing to game times. One American League bench coach said, quote, "Whoever came up with the pitch clock belongs in the Hall of Fame immediately." There's also an anecdote in here where Yankees ace Garrett Cole was doing a bullpen session with the pitch clock to get used to the time he would have to get the ball from the catcher, get back up on the rubber, reload, and get ready to go. And sitting next to him, one of the all-time great Yankee pitchers, the Gator, Ron Guidry, And Ron Guidry played in the 70s and 80s where this was the common pace and length of baseball games. And in the anecdote, as Garrett Cole tells it, Gator was sitting next to me. He looked at me after a rules meeting. He looked at me and said, "I'm going to be watching a lot more baseball this year." So I do think this is going to bring an audience back to baseball, in the sense that they will be willing to watch more of it, watch for longer, watch more games, because it's less of a time commitment over the course of time. And I do think it will change how we engage with baseball, in the sense that we got to be on our toes, because the actions come out a little faster than we're accustomed to. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I am, me, I'm old school baseball guy. But this pace, when you watch it, it feels like old school baseball. I think we're going to love the pitch clock. I think by the time we get through April and through May, and everybody's used to it, and you're not seeing every game or every other game interrupted by a pitch clock violation, though you'll still have them here and there. Once those become less obtrusive, you're going to be in love with this thing.
I am not opposed to it. I was not dying for it. Here's where I have trepidation about what the consequences of it could be. This was not instituted, let's be completely honest here. This was not instituted to give baseball an old school feel. This was instituted because Rob Manfred has a fetish for making the game legitimately time on the clock shorter than it was before. That's not like a reason that's good for the game. That is a reason that he and his cronies in Secaucus have conjured up in their own minds that baseball needs. And if it works out, then fine, it works out. But I do have some trepidation. What potential outcomes could there be? What potential negative outcomes could come of this? Maybe there are none. Maybe this ends up solving all of baseball's problems. Maybe you end up in a situation where pitchers who are used to getting 45 seconds between pitches and being able to throw 100 for 12 pitches after they came in relief and get out of the sixth inning, maybe now by that 12th pitch, they can only throw 98. And maybe they wear out a little bit quicker. Maybe that solves some of the batting problems and the fact that batters have a harder time facing the greatest pitchers of all time. Total no-names on crappy teams are better than 95% of every single Major League Baseball pitcher before 2003.
No, you're right about this. At least they got better stuff.
Yes, absolutely they have better stuff.
Right.
100 that moves. Like, it's crazy. It's almost unnatural with how good pitchers are. So maybe this solves that problem. Problem in quotation marks. But I just worry what other consequences, good or bad, I guess, could come from this. And if there are none, then fine. I will say I was wrong about it. It was a great decision. I'm glad it's working. Good for baseball. Now, I think it is also worth bringing up. Let's say that the pitch clock solves some of those balls in play issues. It solves some of the pace of play or action actually on the field happening issues. Does making numerous rule changes all at once swing it too far in the other direction or cause some other set of problems? I don't know. And I'm not saying it for sure will. I do not think that Rob Manfred has earned the benefit of the doubt. I do not think he has done enough in 7.5 years as the commissioner of baseball, or going on. Actually, we're getting closer to 9 years now. So it's 8.5 years as the commissioner of Major League Baseball. I do not think he has done enough to earn the benefit of the doubt that decisions that are made under his watch by people in power should just be treated. And I'm not saying you did not analyze this critically, because obviously you did. But I've seen so much, love the pitch clock. Love the games are over in 2 hours, 15 minutes. I think we should be looking as a baseball viewing public with a more critical eye at this and say, why did we get to this point? What other things could come from this? And maybe I'm too jaded. And if that's the case, so be it.
I think, and I'm going to recommend everybody read the Jeff Passan article. It's an ESPN Plus exclusive, but if you have ESPN Plus, you should be able to read it.
You probably do at this point.
And yeah, if you're listening to us, you're in the Big 12 footprint, you probably have ESPN Plus. If you haven't canceled your subscription at the end of basketball season, which I would understand. But no, definitely worth a read, because there are a lot of interesting quotes in there from people across the league, and a lot of people who were admitted skeptics who've kind of been won over by there's this quote here from Ollie Marmol. He's the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And he was particularly worried because of pitchers who usually take a long time between pitches. One of the most notorious slow workers in the game is his ninth inning guy, Giovanni Gallegos. And there's an anecdote in here about Gallegos' first live bullpen session when they put the clock on him. He was a mess. And then his second one, he was not better. But then in game action, Gallegos has handled it pretty fine. And Marmol's quote on it is, "I planned for the worst and landed in a spot where it's way better than anticipated. I like it, and we've had zero complaints from our players." Like, I really do. I think this is going to win everybody over. Even the most hard-bitten skeptics about the pitch clock, I think this is going to win everybody over. You're going to get a much better pace of play. Because I think we get caught up in the time, right? Like, we get caught up in the 3.5 hours, the 2.5 hours, or whatever it is. But when there's a good pace to what's happening, when there's a good flow to it, then you can look up and it be a 3-hour, 14 to 13 slugfest, but you don't feel like any of that time was wasted. You feel like, oh man, like I was absorbed in this because things kept happening. The game kept moving.
You know what a great example of that is? Almost every single game of the World Baseball Classic. There was no pitch clock in any of those games, and they were thrilling.
Yes. And that is a great argument. Like, I am receptive to the argument where so much of the excitement of like high stakes baseball, especially when you get into the pennant races, when you get into October, so much of the excitement is the drama between pitches. And when you can take as long as you need to between pitches, that gives the drama a chance to heighten. It gives the crowd noise a chance to crescendo in a way that in a pitch clock age, we don't know what that's going to be like. It's not going to not be dramatic, though. It's just going to be different. It's going to be drama compressed into a smaller nugget of time. And I think we will get used to it. That will be different. Like the big game feel in September and in October, that will be different. I will be interested to see what impact that has. But as for like watching a mid-April game between the Royals and whoever, and you're done in 2 hours and 20 minutes and you can watch a West Coast game or get your kids to bed at a decent time, like that's a big deal. I do. I think this is going to be really well received. I was a skeptic at first, but I think ultimately this is going to be a great change. I think the shift going away is a great change because for the better part of my baseball watching life and for the balance of the time that you watch any other level of baseball, like the minor leagues, college baseball, high school baseball, if a ball is hit in a certain spot, a certain velocity, it's a base hit. If a ball's hit at a fielder, where the shortstop stands, where the third baseman stands, where the second baseman, where the first baseman stands, then it's an out. And over the last decade, that kind of went away, where you'd see somebody get around on a fastball and just sear a 2-hop rocket into short right field, and you're thinking base hit, except nope, that's where the third baseman is playing on this particular at-bat because it's a left-hand slugger at the plate. Like I understand the argument against the shift, but I am pro the shift going away. I am pro the bigger bases because stolen bases are exciting. And bringing them back, bringing that play, that action back into baseball, inviting that back into Major League Baseball, I think is a plus. Again, this took me time. And I'm not taking money under the table from anybody with Major League Baseball on this stuff. But the more that I've watched it, the more that I've watched some spring training baseball this year, I think these are all overwhelmingly positive changes that will make baseball better. I really do.
I do think, and this doesn't change your argument at all, but I do think it is important to note the infield shift is what is no longer in play.
Right.
Because you can't, and this changes the strategy too, obviously, but let's say you've got a lefty pull hitter Anthony Rizzo is coming to the plate. You know he's likely going to pull the ball. You cannot put 3 infielders on the right side of second base.
You have to, when the pitch is thrown, have 2 infielders on the second base, the third base side of second base, and 2 infielders on the first base side of second base.
But in theory, if you are thinking we got to make sure we're extra covered there, you can bring your left fielder all the way across the field and put him at short right. You can do this. So you can still, and you can, realign your second and first baseman, realign short and third. They just have to be split. And again, I don't mean to take away from your point because you're right on. There are still ways you can shift, but the super overload 4 dudes on the dirt on one half of the field, that is gone.
Yeah, that infield shift. I guess I should be specific. I am glad that the infield shifts are going away. If you want to be creative with your outfielders, go for it. If you want to play 4 guys in the outfield, I think you can still do that. I think you can still go 4 outfielders if you want. You can drop your shortstop back and have them play left center.
Yeah.
I think that's still legal. But you got to weigh the consequences, right? And there are more severe consequences for a 2-man outfield than there are for an overload infield, because you overload the infield. Joey Gallo, okay, maybe he does drop a bunt, or maybe Anthony Rizzo drops a bunt. Well, okay, fine, that's a single. You can give up a single. You're fine giving up a single to Joey Gallo because the alternative is he hits it over everybody's head and it's a home run.
Yeah.
But what if he hits it down the left field line and you don't have a left fielder? Then it's a triple.
Exactly.
So the consequences are greater. And so I think that the balance of that may take more than a year to kind of figure out and suss out.
Also, I should mention, your infielders do have to be on the dirt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the restrictions are 2 infielders must be positioned on either side of second base when the pitch is released. All 4 infielders must have both feet within the infield.
Both feet on the dirt. Okay. Yeah. I think it was different somewhere else, and that's why I had it confused.
Okay.
But, but still, I think that's a positive change. I think that ground balls up the middle being base hits and hard hit ground balls through the right side by a left-handed power hitter being base hits. Again, balls in play, being hits, base runners on, that's action. That's good for baseball.
All right. We are in a little bit of a time crunch here. So instead of doing biggest on-field storyline and what are you most excited for, we can make that all one. What are you just in general with Major League Baseball this year? What is the thing that you are most interested in? I mean, I guess it could be how the game unfolds with these new rules, but is it a team? Is it, can Ohtani keep doing this? Is it the AL East is going to be crazy, and I can't wait to watch it. What would that one thing be?
I'll give you one storyline per league, real rapid fire. In the American League, it is, can Ohtani and Trout get to the postseason? I think this is a pretty decent Angels team on paper. I like their rotation a lot. It's very lefty heavy, but I like their rotation quite a bit. And I think that Ohtani and Trout are the backbone of a really good lineup, and Hunter Renfroe is a good addition for them. But I think their infield is not very good, and I have some concerns about the rest of that lineup. But it would be awesome to see Ohtani and Trout in October. So I hope that we get that. In the National League, two teams are all the way in. The Mets and the Padres are pot committed to World Series or bust. How does that go for them? History suggests that when the Mets and the Padres are close to prosperity, they find a way to blow it because they're the Mets and the Padres. But will this be the year for either of them and maybe show a path forward? Particularly, I think the Padres winning would be great for baseball because it would show owners of other teams that are in similar size markets as San Diego as, hey, your investment in building the best baseball team you can build maybe will pay off more than your little real estate ventures or just trying to hold on and make a profit. Like, man, go out and spend some money, give your city and give your fans something to get fired up about, and then maybe go win the damn thing. And then you've got a trophy. And that would be something that your other rich friends can't match.
That to me is what baseball needs more than anything. They need to prove that, hey, going out and spending the money and trying to win is good. You want that. And I would hate to see the Mets win a World Series, but the Mets are also kind of in that boat. Now, the Mets are not as well managed, I think, and I don't mean like your manager on the field, but as an organization managed as well as the Padres are or have been. I think Steve Cohen is a little bit reckless, and I don't know that the Mets are going to be the best team in all of baseball. But seeing a team like that who goes out, who makes those deals, who says, hey, we want the best players, and we're going to make it happen, that's a good thing for baseball, which is kind of crazy. Because for how many decades was it the Yankees are bad for baseball because they just buy all these players? Well, now we're in an era where nobody wants to spend for players.
Right.
I mean, that's why we were talking about this the other day, why I was finally excited for a Cubs season again for the first time since 2017. Because, well, they should have gotten better players. Dansby Swanson is an improvement. You're trying with a couple different guys.
Jameson Taillon, Cody Bellinger. Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to try to put a better product on the field. And it's insane that that's not how every team feels, but we're trying to swing back in that direction. Also, the Angels, because they have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, the two most must-see players on one of the least-see teams in baseball.
But hey, if the Central Time Zone games are done in 2.5 hours, that gives you time to turn on a West Coast game.
That's definitely true. We've got to get to a break. Our March semifinals for What Is Wrong With You are next on 580 Sports Talk. Time to find our semifinalists for our March championship in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. 5 weekly winners, including 2 short weeks. So let's jump right into it. We've got a play-in game for today, Dan. And it starts with our winner from this week, or really yesterday, the 40-minute restraining order. A gentleman who at 1:20 p.m. on Saturday was apprehended by police, and he was told, hey, you're violating an order of protection. He said, well, hold on. I never was served this. They said, okay, now you're being served this order of protection. You've got to leave. He then violated that restraining order 40 minutes later. Not even an hour later. 40 minutes. That's not even like a full listen through of an album. And he came back and broke that order of protection. That was our winner from this week. The first short week of the month. Dan, this was an all-timer from South Euclid, Ohio, the not-so-clean getaway.
Yeah, guy stole about $500 worth of unpaid merchandise at a grocery store, but his getaway car was in a nearby car wash line, and it couldn't move. So police just drove up to the vehicle and arrested not only the thief, but the driver of the getaway car because he just had to get a car wash. Yeah, that one wins this one.
Yeah, that wins.
Let's not overthink it.
Yeah, that's an easy one. So the not so clean getaway, that wins round 1 and advances on to our first semifinal, where it takes on, and I don't remember if we had a name for this guy, but he's the wedding reception lunatic from Florida. Guy who owned a venue. There was a wedding reception going on at said venue. And the guy who owned it was mad that they were being too loud. So he pulled out his gun and threatened everybody who was there at the reception.
Ruined the final dance.
The DJ, who is also the cousin of the bride, took video showing the irate owner of the venue waving the gun and shouting at terrified guests. That DJ, Jonathan Campo, says, quote, he begins to wave it at everyone at the party, telling us all to get out, get out, get out, adding that it happened during the final song of the night. So the last dance for everyone, this guy comes out and says, this is the final straw, and starts waving his gun around. There's a still shot from this video. He puts the gun right up to a dude's head at one point.
Yeah, horrifying. And a total wedding ruiner.
Yes.
Like if somebody had ruined my last dance with my wife at my wedding, I would still be shaken about it. It would still affect me. I would probably think about it every day.
Absolutely.
Probably if somebody waved a gun at me for any reason, I would probably be shaken about it. But no, as bad as that is, the guy's getaway driver decided to get a car wash. Like, you had one job, and it was not get a car wash.
It was be ready to leave ASAP.
The getaway vehicle can be dirty. It's fine.
And the S there does not stand for slow or slowly.
You did not need the undercoating.
Didn't need the polished wax
to improve your ability to get away.
So that is our first semifinalist, or our first finalist, the not so clean getaway. Our other semifinal includes the real life Super Troopers versus the felonious father. Dan, why don't you take care of the real life Super Troopers? These were both your stories.
Yes, they were both my stories. South Carolina, Greenville County, 3 deputies disciplined after engaging in a little horseplay during a controlled exercise involving firearms. One of them had a firearm that was full of blank rounds, a simulation gun, as it's called in the story, and jokingly fired that gun at another deputy. The other deputy probably didn't think it was all that funny and responded by picking up a gun that he thought was a simulation gun with blank rounds, but was a real gun with real rounds, and shot the other deputy in the foot. The injured deputy was treated and released. Both of those deputies were disciplined for careless use of a firearm and improper handling of a firearm. We call them the real life Super Troopers because it definitely feels like something that would have happened in the Broken Lizard film universe.
These people are supposed to protect us.
Yes, to protect and serve. Yes.
And look, this is not a reflection of police officers in general. This is a reflection of these turkeys.
No.
Very, very dumb.
No. We do not generalize based upon our What Is Wrong With You nominees or winners. There are no generalizations being made here.
We would have no trust for anyone.
We're not talking about deputies. We're talking about these deputies.
Right. The other semifinalist here is the felonious father, the dad in Glasgow who is trying to rob a guy at an ATM only to discover and then completely ignore the fact that he was trying to rob his own 17-year-old son.
45-year-old man robbing his 17-year-old son at knife point over a 10-pound note.
So about $12. And pinned him up against the wall. The boy felt a large kitchen knife pressed against his face. Like, Dad, I used that to make lunch earlier. Get off me.
Are you serious? Do you know who this is? To which the father replied, I don't give a bleep who it is. Give me that $12.
And then the victim, the son, pulled the mask off his dad's face and said, what are you doing? And the dad said, I'm sorry, I'm desperate. Just say I can't give you allowance this week, man. Like, you don't have to do this.
He got 26 months in jail. The defense attorney with the understatement of the century. His mother, brother, and son are all extremely angry at him.
I would be too.
Boy, I bet.
I am going to go with the real life Super Troopers here. A deputy shot another deputy just messing around. Sometimes if you're committing criminal behavior, maybe you are desperate. You're probably not thinking all that straight. These guys were, as far as we know, were of sound mind and shot each other.
It is, in fact, like almost exactly what happened in the real Super Troopers, where they have the guy with the metal jockstrap.
Yeah.
And they're pretending to shoot at him, but they're blanks. And then somebody actually shoots real bullets. The chief, played by Brian Cox, say you're supposed to use fake bullets for this prank.
Yeah, that's my winner. Does that get your vote too?
Yes.
Those are our two finalists for What Is Wrong With You. We'll find our winner on Friday. We're off tomorrow because of Royals baseball. The Not So Clean Getaway versus the real life Super Troopers. With that, let's get to a quick break. Tim Fitzgerald joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. It's a big victory for us on 580 Sports Talk because every Wednesday, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour, we get to talk to Tim Fitzgerald, publisher of GoPowerCat.com. You can find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz and head on over to GoPowerCat.com for all the best coverage of all things Kansas State athletics. How are you, Fitz?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Hell yeah.
How are you guys?
We're great.
Good.
Yeah, doing well.
I wish I was in Houston or on my way, but so be it. That's what life serves you sometimes.
Hey, as Dan likes to say, it'd be like that sometimes.
They really do.
Yep, I like it. That's good.
Well, let's talk about the end of the season for the Kansas State Wildcats. And obviously, it does not change the fact that this was a major turnaround season. It was an iconic season for the program. Jerome Tang's going to win National Coach of the Year. You had 2 third-team All-Americans. You had the player of the region in the East of the NCAA tournament, even though K-State didn't even win the region. So obviously, all that still stands. But I have to imagine, Fitz, a few days later, that loss still really has to hurt K-State's fan base and just the program, just because they were so darn close despite not coming close to playing an A game and still came up short.
Yeah, you just look back at the game, and I know people want to talk about how the game was officiated, in particular with Keontae, but still with all of that, things out of your control, you had so much you could control that you didn't, including just some simple finishing at the rim that they had done. Guys like Desi Seals and Naquan Thomas that finish at the rim, and they didn't. And, just getting beat to so many loose balls and rebounds. You just look at the final sequence of events. I think they gave up 2 rebounds off missed free throws, and they kept FAU on the offensive end. Right there, you're giving them extra opportunity to score while you're losing opportunity to score. It was just, I think that's where the real frustration is they just weren't good enough, and it really is that they just play a little bit better. They win that game.
I still cannot get over getting doubled up in the rebounding margin. And I know Vlad Golden played a good game and was great for FAU, but 44-22 in an elimination game, Fitz. I mean, that's just hard to wrap your head around.
It is. It really is. And we knew that was a weak point of this team, going up against a true big. That's why being in Purdue's bracket seemed bad, but it wasn't their big that got him. It was the guy from Florida Atlantic who hadn't been that great the entire tournament, but he had the perfect day. And, honestly, I mentioned things you can and can't control. If the referees officiated the game exactly how he needed it, he was pretty free to roam the middle and do what he needed to do. And if it just didn't adjust, they weren't good enough, they weren't physical enough, they weren't determined enough to rebound the ball.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com. He joins us at this time every Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up. Fitz is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. Check out him and his staff's work at GoPowerCat.com and find Fitz on Twitter at LifeOfFitz. As it comes to an end, Fitz, I think that there is probably a split in the states of mind of a lot of Kansas State fans. I thought your own Ryan Wallace at Go PowerCat kind of laid this out really well on the website, that there's a feeling of gratitude and appreciation for what Kansas State accomplished this year, but also a feeling of, man, when are we going to put the big banner up for a Final Four? And I wonder where you fall on that. Is it more the appreciation for what was, or is there more a disappointment in what had the opportunity to be an even more special and more accomplished season falling by the wayside?
Of all the recent opportunities they've had, being Butler and Loyola Chicago, this one just feels like this was going to happen. I mean, everything else was falling into place. I thought K-State was a better team. I still believe that. They weren't better on that day. But I think they win 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 matchups with that team. They just didn't win this one. And that's probably where the disappointment is rooted. And it's kind of confounding that they can't quite figure out how to get over this hump into the Final Four. But, you kind of go back and look at the last 3 Sweet 16 games they've had, an absolute double overtime war with Xavier, just a brawl with Kentucky in which they had to overcome such a size disadvantage. And then you turn around and really Michigan State was also overtime. So it's almost like they've given everything they had in the Sweet 16, and then they just didn't have enough left in the tank for that. But that's the nature of the game. You got to come back 2 days later, 1 day later, and play basketball. And they just haven't been able to string that together.
Fitz, I saw a tweet at some point last week from an account that keeps track of trends in hip hop music. And it said something along the lines of The song My Turn by Lil Baby is going crazy on streaming this week, and I don't have any idea why. Well, if you're a K-State fan, you knew exactly why, because that was their pump-up song that kind of went viral and that other teams have imitated. The South Carolina women did a video where they kind of imitated the pregame routine that K-State was showcasing in their locker room. Between the New York hip-hop royalty that came out to watch Marquise Noel, guys wearing the K-State gear in Madison Square Garden, maybe this is the wrong way to ask this, but it's the only way I can think to ask this question. Has K-State ever been this cool?
No, I think you're exactly right. And you've asked the right person, because I think everyone knows what a professor of hip-hop music I am.
That's right.
The arbiter of cool, Tim Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite hip-hop album was by George Strait. So that pretty much...
hey, that guy was was really spitting.
Yeah, he really could. But yeah, it is amazing, and nothing's contrived about it. Is what's so amazing about it. This is just who these coaches are and who they know. I mean, Dream Dowling's just so plugged into stuff, and I got to think Brett Yormark's like, I couldn't have asked for anything better than this for my conference to be, have a team in New York that is seen as this cool. It is kind of crazy, but that has been the overall impact of Jerome Tang and his coaching staff on the university. It's been more than just basketball. It's been kind of the entire K-State brand is a lot fresher right now.
So then the next logical question is, how does Kansas State leverage this? And I don't just mean Kansas State basketball. I mean Kansas State football. I mean other athletic programs in Manhattan. I mean the university. I mean the city of Manhattan. How do you leverage this moment in time where Kansas State has, even without reaching the Final Four, winning a national championship, captured something of the national imagination and made itself into a brand that is desirable, whether it's people admiring the lavender pullovers or whether it's people wanting to do their pregame routine and listen to their playlist or whatever it is? How does Kansas State leverage this moment in time and keep the good times rolling?
Well, they really have to drive enrollment with this. They've gotten some great exposure. They seem like a cool place to go to school. And now, I mean, if you go back to when John Weefald grew K-State with Bill Snyder's football coach, that wasn't because anything hip and cool was going on. It just seemed like the place where things were happening. And this is certainly what Kansas State has on its plate right now. Win a Big 12 football title, have this kind of exposure with basketball. The whole school looks united, and even turn on the TV and see the students doing the Wabash. It just looks like the cool, fun place to go to school, and hopefully the university, in its own marketing, can then get into schools and turn this into enrollment numbers, because that's really what the new president needs to drive. He has to get enrollment up at Kansas State.
Couple more questions for Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. He joins us every Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk for our Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up. Head over to GoPowerCat. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network for all the best coverage of Kansas State athletics. And you can find Fitz on Twitter, as well, at Life of Fitz. Fitz, were you at all surprised that Ish Massoud entered the portal today?
I was, but, it kind of makes sense. I don't know where, if you looked at how they used him down the stretch, they understood that they needed him out there for offense, but they would swap him out for defense and rebounding. Maybe Ish is looking for more consistent playing time, but I think K-State would prefer to have guys that can, play offense and defense. And Jerome Pink pointed that out a number of times. This is a football where you get a platoon in your special teams, your offense, defense. Everyone's got to be able to do it. And I don't know that Ish was really regarded as a guy that could defend and rebound at the level they needed in this conference. It was his weakness last year under Bruce Weber, why he saw playing time evaporate. And he did a better job with it, but I still don't think it was regarded as good enough. I'm a little disappointed, but I also understand that Ish might want to get back closer to home, and there'll be opportunities for him after what he put on display in the tournament.
Dan and I yesterday were going through our transfer portal wish lists in terms of what we would be looking for in terms of players, not necessarily a specific name, because I imagine there's still probably hundreds of guys who are going to jump in at various levels over the next few days or next couple of weeks. If you were in charge of stabilizing, or not even stabilizing, but just finishing off this K-State roster for next year, what kind of skill or what kind of trait would you target the most in the portal to add to the K-State program?
Well, the two things I know that they really need, they need a veteran point guard to work with the young guys, because they're going to have they need some more point guard depth, but they've got two young point guards, a true freshman coming in, and Finister, who I don't know if he'll be a sophomore, if they're going to be able to get him some kind of hardship red shirt. But they need someone to work with those guys and probably offer some stability and leadership, because you just can't be that young at the point guard spot. I think they probably also need to find, the type of big man that they obviously needed, which is a guy that can run the floor, get up and down, but also be strong enough to, defend and rebound at a higher level. And they've got Colbert coming in, but I'm not sure if he's quite up and down the court like they would prefer. And also, I think they might just go look for a wing scorer, someone that can really light it up from three, to kind of take Keontae's spot. They got to find a place for Taj Manning on the court, because he is apparently the real deal after his coming out of his redshirt year. So yeah, I think they're going to look for points, ball handling, and rebounding, and cover the gamut of things. And honestly, guys, I don't know if Ish Massoud's leaving on his own accord or he was asked to move on, but they only had 2 openings for transfer portal guys, and it was pretty clear by who they were offering. They were after 3 different types of players.
Does the name Sahvir Wheeler interest you at all? Started at Georgia, played the last 2 years at Kentucky. I know that name has been brought up, at least on social media, a bunch, because he's got plenty of connections to some members of the K-State staff. Not a great offensive player, but did have some moments at Kentucky. Does that name intrigue you for K-State at all?
It does, just because the ties to Coach Tang and Coach Maligi. And I just think that's a possibility. I got some feedback from Kentucky folks that, at least outwardly with the media, he wasn't the best attitude guy, which is a little off-putting. But you know what? So was Marquise Noel. He wasn't the best with the media a year ago, and then Coach Tang kind of snapped him into play. So I think there's a lot of interesting names out there on the portals just kind of getting cooking now. It's going to be so much less hectic and dramatic for K-State, because people forget they've got 3 red shirts. They've signed 3 incoming freshmen, and they also have Dorian Finister, who might as well be a red shirt if they maybe can still get him one. So that's 7 guys that they're already adding in, and then you look at 3 transfers. We're at 10 out of 13. I mean, it's incredible. They're going to go through a similar rebuild, but just with some younger guys this time.
All right, Fitz, we've got about 30 seconds here. Who wins the national championship?
Oh, I think UConn does, just because I'm going to be that talking head that goes with the brand. I kind of hope FAU does. I hope, and San Diego State is the most veteran team, as you guys have chronicled, and I think we've seen that have a huge impact on this tournament. This is fun, guys. I know some people are like, I don't want to watch it. People are going to watch this, and the numbers will be solid. They may not be as great as North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, and whoever else, but these numbers will be pretty good.
Tim Fitzgerald covers the Kansas State Wildcats and publishes GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Head there for all your needs when it comes to K-State athletics. You can also follow Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. He joins us every Wednesday for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up. We appreciate the time, Fitz. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, boys.
That is the best of the best when it comes to covering K-State. Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. We've got headlines, MLB predictions, and more coming up in the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. Now, 1 hour to go on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for being a part of the show. Now, if you've missed any of the show, don't fret because you can go check it out in audio podcast form over at our website. That's 580wibw.com. Just hover your cursor over the podcasts tab and then click on 580 Sports Talk to find the hour-by-hour version of the show. Or you can head to our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. That's where you can watch the show live, comment as well, and also you can rewind the video, go see any earlier part of the show if you want to watch it. And also you can go check our full archive of shows that way as well. They are all up there. You can go watch any of them whenever you want. That is on our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. And as always, would love for you to go and subscribe if you haven't already. It is free. All you have to do is be signed into your Google account, Google, YouTube. It's all the same, all owned by the same company. Just sign in, hit the subscribe button. Boom. You are going to see all of our stuff as soon as it goes up and goes live. Again, Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our channel. Coming up this hour, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines to get to, including plenty of news from college basketball, including KU today. Also K-State, some portal news for both programs. And we'll get to our Major League Baseball yearly predictions as well. Who is going to win every division? Who will get the wild cards? Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, MVP, league winners, and World Series winners as well. We'll get to all that coming up this hour. Plus, we'll get to your texts. You can send those in at 785-272-9429 or jump into the comment section on YouTube. Again, Sports on 580 WIBW. Without further ado, let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. The transfer portal news. KU and K-State both involved. We talked about it last hour that K-State is losing Ish Masood to the transfer portal after 2 years with the program. Meanwhile, KU, former 5-star recruit MJ Rice, has unsurprisingly entered the transfer portal. That is now 5 players who have gone into the portal. It's MJ Rice, Joe Yesufu, Bobby Pettiford, Zach Clements, Cam Martin. And if you have been paying attention to some of the KU insiders, Kyle Cuff will be next. That's not for sure. I technically shouldn't be reporting that, but Kyle Cuff's going to transfer.
If Pettiford, Yesufu, Rice, Martin, and Clements were your starting 5, how many Big 12 games does that team win?
6.
Really? That many?
It might be less than that. In the new Big 12, they would win 6 because they'd get to play UCF and BYU. It might only be 3 or 4.
I don't think that would be a very good team at all.
No.
I absolutely no chance to defend anybody taller than 6'8".
Imagine like Zach Clements trying to guard, I don't know, anyone. Like give me a good big man. Like who's going to be around next year?
Caleb Boone? Is he going to be around?
Like,
not
great.
There's a reason Bill Self never let him try.
Well, yeah, and, the reason he was the Tanner Groves stopper, Groves did have that unique skill set where he was able to step out and shoot, but he was also slow, and he wasn't going to body you in the paint. He could play in the paint, but he wasn't going to body you, and that's why Clements was able to guard him.
I feel a little bad for MJ Rice still because I don't think he ever got a real chance to show what he could do, and I think that it was not his fault that he never got the chance to show what he could do. It was just the circumstances of the injuries that he dealt with, and he never got a chance to get into the rotation in the non-conference games that you would like to develop a young player and get a freshman some confidence in. He never got a chance to play in those games. So by the time he was finally healthy and ready to contribute, like physically, it was games KU needed to win.
Yeah.
And there's only but so much that a coach is ever going to trust a freshman, any freshman, if they haven't gotten a chance to play or work their way into the rotation or prove that they meet a need, fit a role. And the first time that they're physically able to do it is Big 12 play. So I just don't think he ever really got a chance. I think there's a good basketball player in there. I think he's going to turn up P5 somewhere.
I agree. It's a tough situation for him because if you remember his recruitment, KU was up against the G League or Overtime Elite, as I don't remember which it was specifically, but he was considering going pro or going to KU. or a Power 5 school. And he ended up obviously going to KU, and it sucks for him that it didn't work out. I'm also not surprised that both sides, and I'm assuming here, both sides probably said, yeah, it's best to just try something new, because it never worked. And he wasn't good when he got on the floor. But again, like you said, that's not entirely his fault. He missed the most important time of the year for freshmen, which is those non-conference games. Bad situation. I wish him the best. No hard feelings. I understand. And KU now has another spot open in the portal.
And as for Ish Massoud,
yeah.
We talked about it with Tim Fitzgerald in the Azure Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-up just a little bit ago. It was a little surprising to see him in the portal, but in the same vein, Kansas State needs space to bring players into their program to try and sustain the momentum from what they did this past season. And I think you can make the argument that Ish Massoud probably isn't a starter on the best possible version of Kansas State basketball for 2023-24. If you've only got one more year of college basketball to play, you might like to spend it somewhere you can play 25 minutes and not 15 minutes or 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if for Ish that's going to be at the high major level. I don't. I know Fitz suggested maybe he wants to go closer to home to New York. I think that makes a lot of sense. There are a ton of Division I programs in the Northeast. A ton. Can he play Big East, ACC? I don't know. If he wants to play, starter kind of minutes, if not actually start, but play 20 plus minutes a game, I don't know. I don't know what the roster makeup of Syracuse is right now, or, Boston College or something. I don't know. But I almost think maybe going mid-major out there, and there's some really good leagues out there.
Yeah.
That might make a little bit more sense if he wants to play that kind of time. I came up with some major moments at the end of the year.
Yes.
Which,
like the season that Kansas State just had does not happen without Ish Massoud. He is a part of that story. The three-pointer to beat Baylor, the baseline jumper to give them a 3-point lead over Michigan State in the Sweet 16. The whole fun everybody had with Big 12-ish. That's all part of the story, part of the fun ride that this year's Kansas State basketball team was. And he'll always have a special place in hearts for that. But I get why, if you've got one more year to play college basketball, you would probably rather go play somewhere you get 30 minutes instead of a place where you're fighting for your spot. And that's where Ish Massoud was going to be at Kansas State, because defensively, rebounding wise, he just doesn't give you enough in that capacity. He is a bench player in the Big 12.
One other note for a Big 12 player, not that this is a big surprise, Mike Miles declared for the draft, so he is leaving TCU. Not a surprise there. Really, 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 really good college player. I don't know what his his NBA future looks like.
How tall is he? 6'2"?
I think so. Right around there. He's not huge, but not disqualifyingly short. Yeah, you're right on 6'2". I don't know. I feel like he could latch on somewhere. Shot about 50% from the floor for the season overall. 3-point numbers this year. Shot 36%, 33% for his career. He might be able to hook on somewhere. I'd assume late second-round pick probably, if I had to guess.
Yeah. The plays hard, obviously has the mentality you want from a player, the confidence, the belief he's the best player on the floor every time he takes the floor. Yeah, really good college player, and I don't think any team in the Big 12 will be sad not to have to play against him next year.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that.
Speaking of college basketball, by the way, real quick, want to mention that the tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/Lucero and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/Lucero to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help's your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Also from the college basketball world, a little more coaching news today. Looks like Penn State is going to hire Mike Rhodes, head coach of VCU. And VCU, in turn, is going to poach Ryan Odom, reportedly from Utah State. Utah State, pretty good year for them. Ryan Odom, you may remember, was the head coach at UMBC when they knocked off Virginia in the 2018 tournament. Makes sense, I think, for both of those hires. Mike Rhodes is a Pennsylvania guy, I believe.
I think you're right.
So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense there. Also, we had earlier in the week that Mark Madsen is going to end up as the head coach of Cal. That was made official earlier today. His team, Utah Valley, played a banger of a game last night in the NIT semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
They took on UAB. Great game.
There is a non-zero chance that the Conference USA could walk away with championships in all 3 postseason men's college basketball tournaments.
That's awesome.
Charlotte won the CBI.
Mm-hmm.
The NIT final is an all-Conference USA affair between North Texas and UAB. And Florida Atlantic still kicking in the Final Four. Conference USA, sneaky, excellent league this past year.
Excellent is the right word.
Just in time for a lot of those programs to decamp for the AAC.
So thankful we got more crappy power conference teams to get in and not good teams from mid-major conferences. Awesome.
Yes, the tournament was definitely better off for having, like, who was it that was
no, Rutgers didn't make it.
No, I was going to say Rutgers, and I don't know why, because I know they didn't get in. Mississippi State, that's who I was thinking of. Red team, Mississippi State. Yeah, glad they were around.
Yeah, no kidding. Honestly, I would have put like UAB over Illinois. I know Illinois got a 9, but that team had no chance. Come on, I would have put UAB in over a team like that. Let's get to some other headlines outside the world of college basketball.
Yes, let's talk football, where the NFL owners' meetings are ongoing. And last night, owners opted not to vote on a rule that would allow games to be flexed into a Thursday night kickoff. Now, they did agree to modify the existing rule and allow teams to play a maximum of 2 short week games, which would mean that while some teams could play 2 Thursday night games, others would not have any. Previous rule was everybody got a Thursday night game, which, well, you may remember Thursday night football this past year was not a particularly awesome slate of football games. You had some real dire football games. You had that Colts-Broncos game that set football back like 50 years. You had Commanders-Bears, which was wretched. Mm-hmm. You had some really, really bad games, and you had Al Michaels openly talking about how the games were bad and the matchups were bad and the play on the field was bad, which was probably not what Amazon had in mind when they paid $1 billion to show Thursday night football for the next 11 years. So
you also saw Tua almost die.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, Thursday night football really bringing the heat this last year. So the change that has been agreed upon is that now teams can play more than one Thursday night game. Brian Rolapp is the NFL Executive Vice President and Chief Media and Business Officer. He's quoted by ESPN as saying, "We're interested in making sure that we get exposure for all our clubs. We also believe that these national windows are for clubs that are playing well. We want to put the best teams in the best windows." So that's done. What is not done is the rule that would allow games to be flexed to Thursday night. Now, the rule would be that it wouldn't be the kind of thing like we figure out what the Sunday night game is going to be on the next week's Sunday night game is going to be on Sunday night, right? Like that's when they tell us when flex scheduling starts, middle of the season, you're watching Sunday night football in week 8. And then like sometime in the fourth quarter, Mike Tirico says, "Hey, join us next week. It's going to be the Chiefs and the Chargers." You're getting flexed in or whatever it ends up being. Yeah. But it's 1 week. The proposal for the NFL for Thursday night is that it would have to be 2 weeks in advance. The league would flex a Thursday night game. Still, this is a deeply unpopular proposal among players, and there are even some owners that are resistant to it. New York Giants owner John Mara called the idea, quote, abusive, and said this: "At some point, can we please give some consideration to the people who are coming to our games? People make plans to go to these games weeks and months in advance. And 15 days ahead of time to say, sorry, folks, that game you were planning on taking your kids to Sunday at 1, now it's on Thursday night. What are we thinking about?" Mara also said this: "This should have been vetted with the Health and Safety Committee. It should have been vetted with the Competition Committee and it was not. They just tried to push it through. On the flip side of this is the commissioner, Roger Goodell. Quote, there isn't anybody in any of our organizations that doesn't put our fans first. Providing the best matchups for our fans is what we do. That's part of what our schedule is always focused on. Flex has been part of that. We are very judicious with it and careful with it. We look at all the impacts of that before a decision is made. Later saying, I don't think we are putting Amazon over players' interest. We look at data with respect to injuries and impact on players. I think we have data that's very clear. It doesn't show higher injury rate. I hear from a lot of players directly, too. They have 10 days off afterwards, so there's some benefits on that side. Among prominent current players not seeing the benefits, Patrick Mahomes, who tweeted a response to the news that the proposal existed with simply a facepalm emoji.
So the thing I'm curious about here, who is pushing this other than Goodell? Because we know Goodell works for the owners. Mara is one of the most powerful and well-respected of the ownership fraternity. Who is pushing this?
Amazon, probably.
I would assume so.
And, I mean, they got a $1 billion skin in the game, so you understand that. But, yeah, I don't see the appeal of this. I would think that owners would be a little concerned about the impact it might have on attendance to say, hey, 2 weeks out, because people plan trips, people book flights.
Yes.
Like, it's one thing to say, hey, this Sunday game is going to be on Sunday night. Like, that's one thing. To say this Sunday game is going to be on Thursday, yeah, people have to reorient their travel, reorient their whole week. Mm-hmm. Even if you give 2 weeks notice, really, you're giving 15 days. But still, that's not enough. That's not enough time. That's going to hurt attendance. That's going to tick some fans off, tick some paying customers off.
Yep.
And I would love to say that the NFL cared about that, but contrary to what Roger Goodell is saying out loud here, I don't think they give a first damn about the paying customer. All that matters is the TV money. In sports right now, the only thing that matters are the dollars coming in on the TV deals. That's where the owners are making their nut.
And the thing that stinks is that watching an NFL game with an empty stadium is real bad. Like, why are people not here?
Yeah.
Something is very wrong. Like watching every Commanders game for the last decade. Like, what is wrong here? You should at least have some consideration for those people. I imagine Amazon is going to have something broken off for them at some point. They're going to get some kind of perk here. But this isn't it, man. It just doesn't make logistic sense. I hope it doesn't happen because honestly, football belongs on Sundays. That is when it belongs. I can settle for the Monday night game. I can settle for the Thursday night game.
Like, I understand why the Thursday night game exists. It's another TV window, and Amazon is paying a lot of money. That's billion with a B that they're paying to televise this, to stream this for the next 11 years. Like, it exists because money talks. But I think we've all seen that the caliber of play, regardless of who's in the game, the caliber of play is generally less than what you get on Sunday because you are asking players to play on Sunday and then have 3 days to rest, recover, prepare, and then go out and play again on Thursday night. Of course, it's not going to be as good as your Sunday games.
Well, and the 10 days rest thing that Goodell brings up, I frankly feel that rings hollow because, yeah, okay, you get more rest. That's because you have to play in 3 days.
Right. You're beat to hell after playing. The human body is not built probably to play any game of football, to be quite honest. Like, the human brain is not really built to withstand all those hits to the head. But the human body is not equipped to play 2 football games in 5 days.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm sure something like that at some point will, but I hope it doesn't happen.
We have a texter from the 785 on our text line. Again, you can text the show as well, 785-272-9429, who asks, why can't the NFL schedule Thursday night games so the team playing them are coming off bye weeks? That's the most equitable way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Art Rooney the second, the president and CEO of the Pittsburgh Steelers, was asked about this, and he's in favor of having multiple Thursday night games per team, but not in favor of the flex. Rooney said, I think if we're smart about how we're scheduling the teams, if they play 2 Thursday nights, for instance, you can give them back-to-back Thursdays and have a bye on one end or things like that. It can be done in a way that teams will be able to live with it. But he goes on to say, the biggest problem I had with the flex, the proposal was that you only had 15 days notice. That's just too short of a turnaround time as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and here's the logistical problem with doing the bye before the game, because I understand that, but Amazon's paying to get games starting in week 2. There's no week 1 buys. So unless you're, again, going to give them a playoff game to make up for it or something, you can't have, unless you do back-to-back. But then it still wouldn't work because there's only one opening night Thursday game, so someone's getting that short week anyway.
Yeah.
So based on your contracts and what Amazon is getting bang for their buck wise, I don't think that works out.
No.
Unless you say, well, week 2, you're screwed. Everyone else, though, you get to buy. You can't do that.
No. It just, logistically, it doesn't make sense unless you truly do not care about the health and safety of your players, and you truly do not care about the logistics of your fans who are traveling maybe from out of town, maybe from out of state to come and see a football game. And I don't think the NFL really does.
No, I don't really think that
I don't think they care about those two things at all.
No.
I think the players can rant and rave, even if it's star players like J.J. Watt, obviously a retired player, but a prominent NFL player and a prominent NFL voice, was very against this and tweeted his thoughts on it last night. Patrick Mahomes is the face of your league right now. He's against it. So, like, the players, I can't imagine are anywhere close to being behind this, but the league, I think, feels like it can do whatever it wants, and they're probably right.
Yeah, no, they are. People will still watch one way or the other. One quick other note on the NFL, a couple of free agent signings today. Calais Campbell to the Falcons. They've not had an awful offseason, although it sounds like they're going to start Desmond Ridder at quarterback, which might make for an awful season. Also, Marvin Jones going back to the Lions, 1 year, $3 million. I wish my favorite team had done that. Packers could have used Marvin Jones badly.
If only there were a former MVP quarterback who might be on the trade market that the Falcons might think about acquiring. That would make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, they apparently have no interest in Lamar Jackson.
No interest in winning is how I would hear that if I were a Falcons fan.
Unless Arthur Blank came out and told me we are not doing that because we expect it to be bad and we're going to try to get Caleb Williams, I would say, okay, you're not doing enough to try to help this team win. And it's just clear as day. Mm-hmm. Look at who Lamar Jackson would be throwing to. I know their offensive line's not very good. Guess what? He's a good runner. He can escape from things. He can extend the pocket. He's going to be throwing to Drake London and to Kyle Pitts. That's a really good pair. And plus, guys would want to play with Lamar Jackson. That is true. Guys would want to play with him. Arthur Smith, good play designer. I don't get that.
They would be the best team in the AFC South by leaps and bounds if they had Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. I think.
Here's the other thing, too. The 2 first-round picks you have to give to the Ravens in order to then get the to be able to talk to Lamar Jackson and be able to give him a new contract. What would you have to give up to move up for, let's say, a quarterback of the caliber in the draft of Lamar Jackson?
Multiple first-round picks.
Is Lamar Jackson better than Bryce Young?
Yes.
Yes, and Bryce Young could be a very good player, but unless he's great, he's probably not going to be as good as Lamar Jackson. We know what Lamar is. The Panthers had to give up multiple first-round picks and more to go get him, or whoever they want to draft at the top of the draft. The 49ers gave up 3 first-round picks to move up to get Trey Lance, who they might not even want to play.
Right.
Like, only 2 and a new contract is a deal.
Yeah.
You cannot get a quarterback for less than that. Whatever. Bad teams want to stay bad. No skin off my back.
Yeah, but losing franchises stay losing for a myriad of reasons. And the Falcons historically have been a losing franchise.
That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines on this Wednesday afternoon. Coming up on the other side of this commercial break, we'll get you our Major League Baseball season predictions on 580 Sports Talk. Back on 580 Sports Talk, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you on this Wednesday afternoon. The MLB season begins tomorrow. The Kansas City Royals will be at home, in fact, to open up the regular season. That's fun. I believe it's been a little while since they've started the season at home, but maybe I don't remember. They play the Twins in their opening series starting tomorrow.
I think they opened at home last year.
Oh, well, okay. Never mind then.
I think they did.
For some reason, I feel like they started on the road the last few years, but I really don't remember.
Last year, they opened their season at home. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, they scored those 2 runs in the 8th. Bobby Witt Jr. had the big hit, and it was peaches and rainbows for the Royals. And then 3 days later, they lost 17-3.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I suppose I do remember that occurring. I must be thinking of, nope, they started at home in 2021 as well. So just whatever. Oops. It'd be like that sometimes.
It do.
All right. We've got predictions to get to.
Yeah, we do.
We are back to everybody starting on the same day. That's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Opening day should be a national holiday. And for us, it kind of is because we don't have to do a show tomorrow.
Yeah, no show. No 580 Sports Talk tomorrow.
Unless the pitch clock shortens things so dramatically that we get like a 2-hour game at the K, which, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. We'll have a little time on the air then, but we are expecting no show tomorrow because of opening day. So let's go through. We've got all of our playoff picks, World Series and pennant winners, individual awards as well. Let's start in the American League, Dan. Let's just go from C to Shining C, East to West. Who's your East Division winner? I know it's not going to be the Yankees.
It is not going to be the Yankees. It's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays. I like Toronto to win the East. I really like their lineup. I really like their pitching staff. I think the Toronto Blue Jays will rebound from the disappointing way their season ended last year, and they will win the American League East.
I'll take the Yankees to win this one. They're still the odds-on favorites. I think they still have enough juice. Now, that's a good division. I think it's a better division. I think Baltimore is going to be competitive again. I think Boston is going to be a lot better, actually, than they were last year. I will still take the Yankees to be slightly better than the Rays, or than the Blue Jays, there. So I will go with the Yankees for my AL East pick. We're going to save all of this so that we can revisit it or completely ignore it if all of our picks really stink at the end of the year. All right. Central Division of the American League.
Make mine the Guardians to repeat in the American League Central. Really deep pitching staff to the point where, you know, they'll miss Tristan McKenzie. It looks like he's going to miss first month at least of the season, but hopefully not too much longer than that. Terrific bullpen. And I think that the addition of Josh Bell to the middle of that order is going to give them some additional thump behind Jose Ramirez. And they've got really good ball players up and down their lineup. Just solid players. Ahmed Rosario is a solid player. You know, guys like that. So I Stephen Kwan, solid ball player. So, I like Cleveland in a division where I don't think anybody else is going to be all that great.
No, I think it's going to be the Guardians as well. I mean, the Twins, maybe. Like, if Buxton stays healthy, they got to find some pitching. They got some young players that know they like. I think the White Sox are going to be below 500 this year. They were an 81-81 team last year. Now, they have a new manager, Pedro Grifol, longtime Royal. They got worse. Like, they lost one of their best players in Jose Abreu. They added nothing to a pitching staff that really needed help. Oh, except an abuser. They added Mike Clevenger, who hasn't, I mean, he's okay as a player. Whatever. I don't think they're going to be very good. And I think the Royals and Tigers are going to be pretty stinky. So I will take the Guardians there as well. Out west, is it going to be the defending champs?
Yep, I like the Astros to defend that crown out in the American League West.
I think that's a pretty easy one, too. It would be cool if the Angels could actually, be competitive and good. I like the Mariners a lot, but I don't think either of those two teams is even close to good enough to take on the Astros. Wild cards. Wild card one. Who's the best of the rest?
Best of the rest? That's tough to pin down which team I think is going to be the best second place team, but I will take the Tampa Bay Rays. They just find a way.
Rays? Okay. They are going to wear their Devil Rays throwbacks every home Friday game this year. So like the retro Devil Ray, the old color scheme.
On the one hand, those uniforms are so popular, it makes you wonder why they ever got rid of them. On the other hand, the first year they weren't the Devil Rays, they went to the World Series.
Yeah.
It's been better for like the franchise as a whole.
It really has been. I'm going to go with the Blue Jays for my first wild card, and I'm actually going to go with the Rays for the second as well. I think it's just going to be a good year for the AL East. I think all those teams are good. I think all three of them have a chance to win that division, but I'll still take the Yankees on top. I think both the Blue Jays and Rays make the playoffs, though.
Okay. I will take, as my other wild card teams, I will go with the Los Angeles Angels and the Minnesota Twins.
The Minnesota Twins. All right. I like that. Like a little off the board there. I'm going to go with the Homer quote-unquote pick here. I'm going to go with the Mariners for my last wild card team. I think they've got enough. Love Julio Rodriguez. Again, I thought they had a weird offseason. I really don't know why they traded Jesse Winker again. That didn't make any amount of sense to me.
I thought he'd be better for them last year. I think he's got a bounce back year coming in Milwaukee.
I would think the same thing, too. All right, let's move on to the National League, the NL East.
In the National League East, I think it will be the Braves outlasting the Mets and the Phillies in the best division in baseball.
Man, if everyone stays healthy for the Braves, I don't know how many teams in all of baseball are better than them or certainly have more talent than them. I think I'm going to go with the Braves as well.
The Central Division, this is where I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Brewers. I really like their pitching staff, and I really don't like St. Louis's. I like St. Louis's lineup quite a bit. Like adding Wilson Contreras to the middle of that order with the MVP, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. Like they got a lot of really good hitters.
Mm-hmm.
I am very skeptical how that pitching staff is going to hold up over 162. Where with Milwaukee, I think they'll hit. They've got the other Contreras brother who was an all-star last year too.
Mm-hmm.
I like a bounce back for Jesse Winker. Willie Adames is a good player. They still got an MVP in Christian Yelich, who maybe's got to bounce back in him. But I mean, they can throw Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff and Freddie Peralta at you as their top three in their rotation. And they got one of the best closers in baseball in Devin Williams. Like I like the mix in Milwaukee. I don't think that's a very good division.
It's bad
the Central. And I think Milwaukee outlasts St. Louis to win it.
Here is my all of Major League Baseball hot take for you for the year. Okay. You're my bold prediction. You mentioned Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. One of those players is not a Milwaukee Brewer by August 1st.
Wow, you think they're going to be
I think they are going to stink this year.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that they're going to miss the playoffs. I think they're going to stink this year. Now, granted, they might finish like 78 and 84 and be second in the division. That division is awful.
Yeah, the Pirates and Reds aren't even trying. And the Cubs are trying, but they were so bad last year.
Yeah.
It's a question is how good they can get.
Their bullpen also. Oh, God, it's going to get ugly. It is going to get very ugly. I'm going to go with the Cardinals in the Central. And I hate saying it, but I think they are just, frankly, a better team than the Brewers are. I think their lineup is far better than the Brewers can offer. I mean, they've got a ton of talent on that team. You look at Goldschmidt, you look at Arenado, you look at Contreras. Obviously, that's just the beginning of it. They're bringing up, what's the prospect's name?
Jordan Walker.
Jordan Walker.
Yeah.
I think the Cardinals have a little bit too much firepower. I think they win maybe the worst division in baseball. Both Centrals are pretty awful. Let's go out west in the NL.
In the West, I think the San Diego Padres have surpassed the Los Angeles Dodgers.
See, this is a surprising take to me because you have for many years said the Padres will always be the Padres, and that is not a winning team.
They're going to be the Padres in the playoffs, like hilariously so. But they got a deeper roster than the Dodgers right now. Like the Dodgers, to me, they've got a lot of question marks, I think, in their lineup, question marks that they shouldn't have when you have the resources that the Dodgers have. Like they're counting on Trace Thompson. And he's going to play a lot. I know he had a decent year last year in limited duty, but like he's going to play a lot for them. Jason Hayward is going to play for them.
Yeah, he is.
Like, I know you're a Jason Hayward guy, but like,
I've seen that bat.
Yeah, is he helping a big league team like Miguel Rojas at short? I don't know about any of that. And then they've got some question marks in the rotation behind Kershaw and Urias. Can Dustin May stay healthy? What is Noah Syndergaard in 2023? And I'm sure they'll find a way in their bullpen because they generally do, but it's not really an imposing bullpen on paper either.
No.
So I think San Diego has the better roster.
Agreed.
Incredibly deep lineup. They're going to get Tatis back. They added Xander Bogaerts. They have Juan Soto, who is like Ted Williams. It's an imposing lineup. It's a deep starting rotation. I think San Diego overtakes LA in the West.
I've got the Padres as well. The betting favorite is still the Dodgers. Right now at FanDuel, the Padres are plus 120 to win that division. I got that number at plus 130, and I took that. I think the Padres are going to end up winning that division. It is also the most open secret in all of baseball that the Dodgers chose not to spend big in free agency because they want to give $500 million to Shohei Ohtani next year. That's just a completely open secret. Your NL wildcard picks.
So the Dodgers, will be a wild card team.
I'm the same there. I've got them as a wild card.
And the Mets and the Phillies will be wild card teams as well.
Yeah. How good are the Mets? Like, are they legitimate World Series contender good?
Yes. Obviously, it's a bummer that they don't have Edwin Diaz. That's a bummer. But, like, you can overcome losing a closer. Like, as good as those 70 innings were that they were going to get from Edwin Diaz this year, it's still 70 innings. And they'll figure it out. David Robertson, Adam Ottavino, still pretty good 8-9 combo in the back of that bullpen. They've got Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander at the top of the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they could be pretty damn good, I think.
I've got the same wild cards, and really more than any other reason why, who else is going to make the playoffs? Like, the bottom of the NL East is not good.
The only team I'm leaving out that I think has the potential to go to the playoffs is the St. Louis Cardinals. Everybody else, I can't get excited about anybody else in the National League.
No.
The Cubs feel like a 76-win team to me. The Marlins feel like about a 75-win team. The Giants, I don't think are going to be very good. The Diamondbacks, I think, are a year away. And the Rockies stink. The Nationals stink. The Pirates and the Reds are worse than that. Like, yeah, you have four teams that are actively going to be doo-doo water. So, yeah, it's not a lot of fun to talk about the National League. The American League is much more competitive.
All right, real quick, let's get to our pennant winners in the AL.
In the American League, I am going with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Blue Jays, who are they going to knock off?
They will defeat the Astros.
Over the Astros. Okay, I am going to go... Man, I've been going back and forth on this. I'm going to go with the Astros, and I will say we go Astros over a different team from the AL East. I'll say Astros over Rays in the ALCS.
Okay.
And then in the NL, who will represent the National League, the senior circuit in the World Series?
I think we get the Braves over the Mets.
Braves over Mets. That will be a toxic series if we ever got to that point.
I'm really rooting for it. Baseball needs it.
All right, I will be the contrarian to your take. I will take the Padres over the Braves in the NLCS. Champion?
Man, an Astros-Padres World Series just like aesthetically gross to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like the colors.
Yeah, there's a lot of orange and brown.
The colors involved in that World Series are really yucky to me.
I get that.
I don't love it. Party like it's 1992 in reverse. Revenge for 1992, call it. I like the Braves over the Blue Jays. Their second title in 3 years.
And for me, oh, man. You know what? I really want a team that is trying to win. I will say it's the Padres. So we both, despite the NL being kind of gross this year, we both have an NL team winning it all. How about that? All right, individual awards. Let's start with, we've got them listed here in reverse order. Let's start with MVP. Who wins in the American League?
The American League most valuable player this year will be Shohei Ohtani.
He's plus 220 at FanDuel to win AL MVP. The next closest is Aaron Judge at plus 700.
Judge got it last year because he hit the 61 home runs. Like, unless somebody, again, makes a run at a cherished baseball record, they're going to have to give it to Shohei Ohtani because he's going to hit like 30 home runs and he's going to be one of the best starting pitchers in the American League.
I will give you his teammate. I'm going to go Mike Trout.
Okay.
Ohtani is the easy favorite here because he's a top 10 starting pitcher and a top 10 batter, but I'll go with the guy who is going to go down as a first ballot Hall of Fame unanimous pick, Mike Trout.
Okay.
NL MVP.
National League most valuable player. I'm going to say Austin Riley of the Atlanta Braves.
That is an interesting pick.
Going off the board a little bit with that one. Right now at FanDuel, Austin Riley is plus 1,600, but last year's winner, Paul Goldschmidt, is at 1,500 right now. So
interesting.
I think you can find some value down there if you're inclined to bet on such things. But Austin Riley has put together 2 terrific years in a row. I think if he levels up again, gets the average up around 300, 35, 40 home runs, big RBI total in that lineup, which I think he's going to have, I think that's an MVP player.
I'm going to call this the year of Trey Turner. I say he keeps the momentum going from the World Baseball Classic. I think in his first year with the Phillies, he is your National League MVP.
I love that. I like that a lot, actually.
All right, let's get to the Cy Young picks.
Cy Young Award winner in the American League. They're not going to give it to Shohei, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that the Cy Young Award winner, there's a lot of steam for guys like Shane McClanahan this year to win it. But I will say that the Cy Young Award winner this year in the American League will be Man, I'm stumped. You pick one.
All right, I'm going to go in the American League, and I've got the betting odds in front of me right now, and I just lost the American League one. There we go. AL, I'm going to go with a pretty chalky pick. I'm going to go with Garrett Cole, the Yankees, to win it. If I think they're going to win the division, I think they're going to need some strong pitching. I'll say their ace gets it done. Garrett Cole.
I will take Luis Castillo, the Mariners.
I like that one. I like that one a lot.
I think he'll have a year like kind of a workhorse type of year like Sandy Alcantara did last year and winning it for Florida. So or Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll take Luis Castillo, the Mariners.
National League?
National League Cy Young Award winner will be I can tell you who it won't be. I'm going to go Corbin Burns of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Corbin Burns. I'm going to go with another one of my favorite players in the game. If they're going to need good pitching, if they're going to win a World Series, Yu Darvish. Love me some Yu Darvish.
Okay.
All right, rookies of the year, real quick.
Gunnar Henderson of the Baltimore Orioles in the American League.
All right, Gunnar Henderson. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no idea who to pick for these awards. Do you have an NL pick?
Yes, Ezekiel Tovar of the Colorado Rockies. There's my homer pick.
All right, I'll take that. Ezekiel spelled normally for our record-keeping purposes?
Sure.
All right, I'll get you my rookie of the year picks after we take a quick commercial break here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, I've got my rookie of the year picks for you.
All right.
We're going to go from the National League. I'll go with Jordan Walker from the Cardinals.
I think it's a really good pick. He's going to put up some big power numbers.
Yeah, I think
he's
so too.
just strong like bull. He's going to hit a lot of home runs.
And admittedly, unless they're a Cub or a Royal or maybe someone who plays for the White Sox, it's going to take me a while to kind of know like who all the young guys around baseball are. So I'm going to go with a guy who I do know of, who is now a Boston Red Sox, Masataka Yoshida.
That's a good pick, too. He had a good World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, I did. I'm probably putting a little too much stock in WBC performance for these individual awards.
I don't think so. I mean, the guy's been playing like high-level baseball, like high-stakes baseball. They should hit the ground running in April.
It's kind of cool in the springtime, and I'm not going to lie and say I watched all the WBC. I watched a few games of the World Baseball Classic, the end games for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool to have something that was meaningful during that time of year. I mean, obviously we had college basketball tournament time at the same time, but It was kind of cool to have a little bit more than just, spring training, whatever. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I think good for the teams, too, that they got more younger guys or more fringe roster guys, at least in some cases, some at-bats, too.
Yeah, and either in their own camps or representing their countries.
Royals win tomorrow?
Sure, what the hell?
Yeah, why not?
I like Zach Greinke on opening day. You know, what the hell?
Yeah, why not? They will take on the Twins tomorrow just after 3 o'clock, so no show for us unless the game is over in about 2 hours. Otherwise, no show for us. We'll join you again coming up on Friday. But before we say goodbye for an extra day, we'll take one more time out, come back, wrap things up with the final word on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk for a little extra time because we are off tomorrow due to opening day. We'll, of course, have coverage of Royals baseball with pregame beginning at 2:30 on the Royals Radio Network here on 580 WIBW. We'll be back Friday. We will, of course, talk to Matt Derrick. We will wrap up our What is Wrong with You for the month. All that is coming up Friday here on the program. But first, Dan, let's get a final word.
Time begins and hope springs eternal on opening day. And I think that we have a fascinating Kansas City Royals season ahead of us. Whether or not it is a winning season, well, I'm skeptical. But I think it's going to be fascinating to see what a new data-driven approach does, particularly for the pitchers, but really for everybody at the big league level, and how the Royals start their transformation from being a franchise and an organization with a philosophy that was stuck in the past to one that now is caught up with everybody else in the future here in 2023. I can't wait to see what unfolds the next 162 games.
I don't think this is going to be an especially good Royals team in 2023, but I will say this. If you're looking for a reason, why should I watch this team? Why should I tune in or tune the dial to the Royals game opening day on Thursday? There are reasons why you should be excited, at least for the future of this team and for what pieces can be now. That includes the new way of doing business in the front office and on the field. And it includes some young players who've got star potential. MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino, certainly Bobby Witt Jr. Those kinds of guys have that kind of potential. And if for no other reason, they are why you should tune in and check out some Royals baseball coming up tomorrow on opening day. We will join you coming up on Friday. If you missed any of the show, go check out the podcast page at 580wibw.com or go to YouTube Sports on 580 WIBW and rewind the live stream. Until Friday at 3, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Enjoy Royals baseball tomorrow. We'll talk to you later on 580 Sports Talk.